Welcome to the Thought Process. This is a space where I get to think out loud about life, ideas, and whatever I'm trying to understand in the moment. I don't always have answers here, just honest thoughts as they unfold. I'm so grateful you're here. So, let's dive in. Welcome back. Today we're diving into lesson 12 of 30 Before 30. Cultivate your community. My community is who I can text when I'm falling apart and who I celebrate with when things go right. Because to me, I don't see all of these people either weekly or daily, but they show up when it matters. They're my cheerleaders, my friends, supporters, and over the years, it's become a really diverse group of people. My definition of community has changed a lot over the past 10 years. Going through my 20s because the people in my circle have changed. Like they're not the same people that they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's okay. And when I say my circle, I don't mean immediate family or surface level friends. I mean the people who show up for me over and over again in different capacities. The coworkers I didn't have a few years ago, the new friends I've made, and yes, the ones I've had to let go. Community used to mean who I grew up with. I used to think my community was the whole extended cultural community I knew. And I'm going to say something honestly. Sometimes that's not community. That's just your city. I thought everyone would have your back. And unfortunately, that's not true. And I think the biggest thing for me growing up was that I grew up in this very tight-knit community. And what ended up happening was that I confused, the community being the city versus the community that I could count on for support. And you're going to meet people who don't share your values, and that's okay. But you don't need to keep everyone close. Your community is your village, the people you can count on, the people you feel safe with. The time that I felt the most lonely was when I was 24. It was during COVID, and I was sitting on a board in the Ukrainian community. I had spent my whole life trying to be seen, heard, and taken seriously. And maybe in some aspects I was, but something that I have been struggling my whole life is those exact things. Being seen, being heard, and taken seriously. I am the oldest in my family. Like I have a younger sibling. And it's something that I actually realized yesterday talking to my partner was that yes, I may have been the oldest, and yes, I may have figured out how to do everything at a very young age, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I was being heard, seen, or taken seriously. That doesn't mean that I was always put on this pedestal where, yeah, she's a very hard worker, but that doesn't mean that people understood or saw her or took her seriously. And I keep repeating that because those are the three main things that you need to feel loved and cared for. Okay? So when you have those three things, it's like a magic potion. That's the one thing that when students come into my classroom, it's the one thing that I want to make sure that they feel heard, seen, and understood. Because if they don't have those three things, that's when you see behaviors come up. That's when you see things starting to fall apart. And that's where friendships have these points where they kind of either start to fall apart or when you get into arguments with people. And it's just such a human thing to do, but we just don't understand because we don't think in that way, which is fine. That's why we're here on earth. We're here to grow and learn and all that stuff. But it's something that I think that we just think that people inherently have, but it's something that you actually bless someone with. So to go back to my story, I had done so much. And I really believed that these people had my back, but they didn't, and not in the way that I needed, right? And so I remember realizing in real time that I wasn't safe in a place that I had grown up in. I wasn't being heard. I was being dismissed. And what hurt even more was realizing that some of my friends I grew up with took sides. And I wasn't on the side that I thought I'd be on. And so that experience forced me to strip away an identity I had attached to myself. I had attached my worth to a group, to a cause, to a role. And I learned something I'll never forget. We can't attach ourselves or our identity to a set of people. We attach it to values because values go far beyond a set of people, okay? A set of people, a cause, because at the end of the day, that cause may have your best interest, it may have all these things that you want, but what I ended up doing was I had attached myself so much to a cause, to a community, that in the end I was disposable. And it's funny because, as a human, you really don't think that you are disposable. You feel indisposable when you're put in a position, when you're put in a, not even I didn't want to say a hierarchy, but when you're put into a position of power, when you're put into a position where you feel like you can make change. But what that season taught me was that I had to learn how to attach myself to values versus attaching myself to a set of people or to a cause. And that's not for everybody, but that was definitely for me. And that season was humbling, sorry, as I fumble over my words. It took years to grieve because it wasn't something that you could just let go overnight. It was something that I had attached for up until then, like 19 years of my life, as long as I could remember, probably even like 20 years of my life. But I'm honestly grateful that it happened because it made space for new relationships and a healthier kind of community. And I've noticed something. When one friendship falls away, it can create a whole ripple effect. And not to scare anyone, I just think it's so funny because sometimes more people from that same group drift too. And it doesn't always mean you did something wrong. Sometimes it's just growth. Sometimes it's alignment. And I'm going to speak to that in a later episode because there's something definitely to the saying, like, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think we put too much emphasis on this lifetime. I think there's too much emphasis on saying to people, well, I've had this friend since I was 4 years old. But yet there are people that you have not met yet in your life at that point in your life that may come in and make a bigger impact than those that have been with you your whole life. And so the community I have now has multiple support systems in different areas of my life. And I'm grateful for that because your community isn't here to drain you or shrink you. It's here to support you, to challenge you in a healthy way and uplift you. Like, I have friends that are just they are my biggest supporters. If not for my podcast, it's like any creative endeavor I go down. And I think that's the best part is that, your friends, I was having this conversation too with my partner the other day. It's like, you want friends that are there to fully support you. And you don't necessarily need to talk to them if you're at an event. You don't need to necessarily have their attention 24/7 because they are there to support you in the bigger picture, in the bigger aspect of life. Okay? And so when I think about cultivating community, here are some filters I come back to. Do I feel more like myself or less like myself after spending time with this person? Is this reciprocal or am I always the one carrying it? And that's a really important question to ask because reciprocity is what keeps this world going. Think about the plants that grow outside. Think about the whole life cycle the whole food chain. Like, in order for plants to grow, you need to have the reciprocity of the sky giving, sending down rain, and you need to have that plant growing. But also in that whole life cycle, you need to have animals coming and taking the top part of the plant off so that it has time to regrow, so it has a place to regrow. If we don't have this action of reciprocity in our relationships, then really what are we doing? We're just taking, and we're not giving. And that's the whole point, is that it should be this continuous growing aspect between two people, between a group of people. And the last question I have is, can I be honest here without punishment? That's a huge one, because I think something that you need to have in a relationship and to have it within a community is, can you be honest with them without feeling like you're being punished, without feeling like you should be guilty for having a thought? And that's what I mean when I say cultivate your community. Not a big community, a safe one, a real one. And for reflection today, I'm going to leave you with 2 questions. Who do I feel most myself around right now? And what kind of community am I ready for in this season of my life? Because really, those 2 questions, I know those are reflection questions, but I just want to add that community can look different in every single season of your life. Sometimes you need a strong community. Sometimes you need a fun community. Sometimes you need to have a smaller community that really is just taking care of you. And sometimes that community can be one person that you are really leaning on because you need their love and support and knowledge. And I had this beautiful conversation with my mom yesterday about how she had this lifelong friend from when she was a young kid, and they had grown apart. Because what happens when you get older? You start families, you have your partner, you have new jobs. And so they grew apart for probably 30, 40 years. But they recently found each other. And it wasn't that they found each other in the sense of a crazy, friendship, but it's that the 2 couples started to be friends, and that she came back into her friend's life, not because her friend was the husband, but not for the husband's sake, but she feels like she was brought back into this relationship for the reason that she is here to support the wife going through something that she never thought she would be going through. Because my mom had just recently gone through something that she thought that she would never be going through in her life. And that's the beauty of community, because it shows up in the most aligned time in your life. People show up in your time, in your lifetime, for specific reasons, for the most aligned reasons, and no one could have predicted how, okay? But they show up, and those people that show up, they are there for the most divine reasons. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that people are brought into your life for such beautiful reasons. And you are there to uplift someone. You are there to make their day. You are there to be their support system, to be the loved one. Because that's what it means to be in a community. That's what it means to uplift someone, to be there for them, to be their support system. So I know I said I would leave you with those reflection questions, but that really went sideways. It's just this topic has come up in the past couple of days, and it was really sitting on my heart, on my chest, and I really wanted to talk about it. It may not be a long topic today, but that's what the thought process is about. It's about getting those thoughts out and thinking through it all. Because who are we if we're not thinking beings, right? We're constantly thinking, we're constantly reflecting, and that's the beauty of being here, of having the opportunity to have thoughts, to think through these things, to think through these hard times in life. And lastly, I'm really grateful you're here. Until next time.